Many of us attend church every week and faithfully give when the collection plate is passed through the congregation.
Tens of millions of dollars are donated every year to churches in Charlotte alone. Investigative reporter Paul Boyd set out to find answers about that money from 12 of the largest churches in our area and discovered that pastor pay is shrouded in secrecy.
Last year, Americans gave more than $122 billion to churches across our country. But how many of us truly know where that money goes or how much our church leaders are being paid?
They have a right to know how the money is spent. They have a right to know how much their pastor makes.
Tim Burns is a certified public accountant. He runs a Matthews-based nonprofit called Ministry Watch.
Some people say a pastor's salary is none of our business.
I couldn't disagree more.
These pastors lead 12 of the largest churches in the Charlotte area. About 82,000 people attend services to hear them preach every week. Our investigation found that 5 of these churches alone generated $88 million in revenue last year. The IRS designates churches as not-for-profit. They do not pay taxes, and current federal law says churches are not required to disclose their revenue or the compensation of their leadership. By comparison, almost every other nonprofit charity operating in America is required to provide that information by submitting an IRS 990 form.
It forces the charity to have some level of financial disclosure.
The 990 disclosure tells donors exactly how a charity spends money, including how much its leaders are paid. Churches have long been exempt from disclosing financial information. The federal government has considered requiring 990s from churches at different times over the past 50 years, including after the PTL scandal in Charlotte that led to the conviction of Pastor Jim Bakker. But the law never changed. So in an effort to better inform local donors, we asked 12 of Charlotte's largest churches to voluntarily provide us with their financial information. We called it a church transparency survey. I personally wrote the pastor of each church 2 months ago, asking them to provide basic information about church leadership and finances. 5 of the churches responded with basic financial statements, including their total revenue. Last year, Transformation Church brought in $4.8 million from one location. Freedom House, $4.9 million from 2 locations. St. Matthew Catholic Church, $9.1 million from 2 locations. Forest Hill Church, $22 million from 6 locations. And Elevation Church, $47 million from 14 locations.
How much credit do you give to those churches that provided those basic financial statements?
I give a lot of credit because they're not required to.
6 other churches did at least communicate with me, but declined my request for any financial information. The Park Church, Central Church of God, St. Paul Baptist Church, Calvary Church, Mecklenburg Community Church, and Friendship Missionary Baptist Church. Those churches told us their financial information was available, but to members only. One church, Hickory Grove Baptist, refused to even speak with Channel 9 about our transparency survey.
We would love to see complete transparency.
Ministry Watch works with churches across the country to promote better transparency. Tim Burns believes Charlotte is behind the curve.
I think there's a great need for more transparency on the parts of churches in Charlotte.
We can do better.
We can do better.
As for our survey question asking for the compensation of church leadership and pastors, not one single church was willing to disclose what individual leaders are paid, and none of the church pastors were willing to discuss the issue on camera.
I believe that donors have the ultimate responsibility of giving to a church that is financially transparent, and they deserve to know how much their pastor makes. And if they're not given this information, in our mind, that's a huge red flag.
During previous congressional hearings, church leaders have argued that requiring them to disclose their finances would violate the First Amendment separation of church and state clause. Legal scholars are split on the argument and believe the Supreme Court would ultimately decide the issue. Reporting from Charlotte, Paul Boyd, Channel 9 Eyewitness News.
The Senate Finance Committee told Channel 9 there are currently no plans to revisit this issue. You can see how every church responded to our survey, including detailed documents and web links, by visiting our website, WSOCTV.com. Click 9 Investigates on our homepage.